Today, I'm cooking up an entire dinner menu from the Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook. This particular edition was published in 1976, and we will talk more about it a little bit later. But before I delve into the recipes, there's something I need to say. There are people out there right now who are rejoicing over human suffering. They're actually celebrating human suffering. I know these people have always existed, these human suffering cheerleaders. It's just that right now they are feeling particularly emboldened. They are loud, and they are actually proud of themselves. It's not normal, okay? We cannot normalize this. It's pretty bizarre, actually. I want my videos to be a cozy blanket, a soft place for people to land. But if you cannot for 1 second put yourself in another person's shoes, if you cannot show one shred of compassion for someone else, then my content is not for you. It's not for you. We should be showing kindness and compassion. That is what is worth celebrating. And with that, let's get cooking. All right, folks, I'm cooking up a whole dinner menu today from Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook. This is the 1976 edition. And I just felt the need to cook something from this book. It's been a while since I've done anything from this. I want to say it was like my full day of 1970s meals, which was well over a year ago, maybe more. I think this is a very recognizable book. This red sort of bias gingham look. I think a lot of people had this one. So my full dinner menu today is going to consist of 3 components: a main dish, a side dish, and a dessert. So my main dish is called Out Ravioli. My side dish is going to be green beans almond. And then for dessert, we have strawberry cream. I'm going to get going so I can get all of this done, and I'm going to start with the Out Ravioli. That is the Out Ravioli recipe right there. Not exactly sure what makes this an Out Ravioli. You'll see what I mean as I go. But I'm going to start by browning 8 ounces of ground beef in a skillet. Chopping that up. I had this in my freezer. I like to portion frozen ground meat into like 8-ounce portions because that's the amount that I'm the most likely to use. You know, maybe your family is different and you like to portion it into like 1 pound increments, but because I cut so many recipes in half, 8 ounces is the way to go for me. And I have a vacuum sealer that I like to use for this. To that, I am adding a 1/4 cup of chopped onion. And I also have a clove of garlic. I'm gonna cook all of that together until the meat is cooked through. So my meat is almost cooked, but now I'm gonna turn my attention back here because I have a small pan of water going and I'm gonna cook 5 ounces of frozen spinach in there. I'm just cooking this according to package directions. If you had one of those steamable bags of spinach, you could cook that in the microwave very easily. But according to package directions, I just need to let this come to a second boil, which it's doing. It's pretty fast. So I need to reduce the heat on that a bit. And then, whoops, I got the wrong, the wrong lid. It's this one. We have to cover that and let it simmer for about 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, spinach is cooked and I'm gonna drain it, but I'm gonna drain it into a measuring cup because you're supposed to reserve this liquid. And I'm even gonna press the liquid out of it. And you're gonna reserve this liquid because you're gonna use it in the meat sauce, which is what this is for right here. Just gonna set this aside. And I'm cutting the recipe in half. So I need 1/2 cup of spinach liquid, and I have like exactly 1/2 cup. If you were making the full recipe and you needed 1 cup of spinach liquid, you would add enough liquid to this to equal 1 cup. Like enough water to this to equal 1 cup. Right, we're turning our attention's back to this pan with the meat because we're gonna make meat sauce. I have to add the spinach liquid, and it says the next 5 ingredients. This recipe is written in a little bit of an unusual way for me. I did have to read it several times to make sure I was getting this correct. 8 ounces of mushroom spaghetti sauce. So spaghetti sauce with mushrooms. And yes, I specifically sought this out. I suppose if you just wanted to use regular spaghetti sauce, you could, but you know, I'm trying to follow the recipe a little bit. 4 ounces of tomato sauce. My tomato sauce is a little thick, so let me scrape that out. I don't know why you can just use all spaghetti sauce, do what you want. But I do like to try these recipes kind of close to the original, you know, way that they're presented. And I have 3 ounces of tomato paste. The name escaped me for a moment. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 4 and the 5 are salt and pepper. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a dash of pepper. I'm gonna up the heat on that slightly. So I have to mix all of this together and let it simmer for 10 minutes. While the meat sauce is simmering away, I'm going to work on the pasta portion of this recipe. So I have my shell pasta in here. You can use shell pasta or macaroni. Because I'm cutting the recipe in half, I measured out 3.5 ounces of dry shell pasta and I cooked it according to package directions. So then I'm gonna add my spinach to that, kind of break that up a bit. I cooked the macaroni ahead of time, so it was, you know, just slightly stuck together. So a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil. I have 1 beaten egg. I have breadcrumbs. And I have a controversial ingredient, especially in this particular dish, I think. I know, you know, American cheese, maybe not your thing. I think it's especially unusual in this dish. This is the only cheese that is in this entire recipe. It's not mozzarella, ricotta, provolone. It's sharp American, like processed cheese. I went to the deli for this so that I could specifically get like a sharp processed cheese. That was 2 ounces and I just cut it up into pieces since I couldn't really grate it. If you're going to make the full recipe, you're gonna need 4 ounces. Okay, I'm excited, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. I just wanna make sure everything's incorporated. All the spinach and the pasta get kind of like broken up a bit. That's what the mixture is looking like. I am going to be baking this in my toaster oven. That's one of the reasons I wanted to cut this recipe in half. I know I often do that, but I wanted to make sure it was small enough that I could fit it into my toaster oven. It's still a bit warm here, and I didn't want to bake in the big oven if I didn't have to. Get that out of the way. All right, I've gathered everything up. My meat sauce has simmered. It has cooked down a little bit. And I have a glass baking dish. This is like an 8x8 baking dish. The full recipe fits into a 9x13 baking dish. So I have to take my macaroni mixture, my shell pasta mixture in this case, and just spread it on the bottom. I thought because this was like a ravioli, I'm used to ravioli with some kind of like ricotta filling. Maybe the egg and the breadcrumb and the spinach is supposed to like simulate that texture or something, I'm not sure. You want to spread this evenly because I have to pour the meat sauce on top and I want to make sure, you know, that it can all get in there. Whew, seems like a lot of sauce. And no, there is no cheese on top of this. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. You do what you want to do, but this recipe doesn't say anything about putting cheese on top. So I'm not gonna. Spread the sauce. Very, very saucy, very saucy. You know, maybe some of this will flow into the nooks and crannies. That's the hope for me, I think. Yeah, it all fit just fine. This is so interesting. You know, I know it's supposed to be inside out ravioli, like maybe that's why it's layered. I'd probably just mix it all up. I'd mix a lot of it up. I'd probably maybe like mix half the sauce with the pasta, spread it on the bottom, and then put half of the meat sauce on top. So we'll see how this turns out. All right, let me make sure. Yep, okay. So I have to bake this in a 350-degree oven. I've been preheating my toaster oven, so that is what I'm gonna do. While my inside out ravioli is baking, I'm gonna shift my focus to dessert, and I'm going to make this strawberry cream recipe. This dessert has very minimal ingredients, and I thought it was really appropriate for this time of year because strawberries in summer just go hand in hand, don't they? You start with some cream cheese. I'm cutting the recipe in half, so I have 1.5 ounces of very soft cream cheese. And I have a tablespoon of sugar, and I need a pinch of salt. One moment. I'm doing a tiny pinch. And I'm gonna move my last ingredient to the side. This is heavy cream, but I wanna break up this cream cheese just a little bit before I add any of the heavy cream. Okay, so that is nicely broken up. And I'm gonna take just a little bit of this heavy cream, like an ounce of this heavy cream. We're gonna eyeball it. I'll use the rest of this later, and you might be thinking like, why did you use such a big bowl for this? It's because I'm gonna whip the rest of this cream and then fold that into this. So I need space for that. So let's mix this up. It says to beat this until it's fluffy. I'm gonna scrape the bowl. I don't think it's gonna get like whipped cream fluffy, like just whipped cream. I think it's gonna get like fluffy-ish, but we'll see how fluffy we can get this. All right, I think I'm gonna stop there because it's pretty dang fluffy. It's got some volume to it. All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Wow. That's a delight. Just as it is, I'm like, oh, I could just stop here. I could just stop here. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna do the rest of the recipe. I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator, bring out a metal bowl, cold metal bowl, so I can whip the cream. Okay, so I've swapped out my other bowl for a metal bowl, a metal mixing bowl that I've left in the fridge for a while. You may also notice that I swapped out the regular beaters on my mixer. I have these wire whisks, and these whip cream in like no time at all. And I also put these in the refrigerator. Some mixers come with just one of these, which is fine. I really like this mixer because it comes with two and it just makes whipping cream very fast. So I'm gonna pour my cold cream into this bowl and we're gonna whip. I know that's a terrible sound. I'm gonna mute this for a little bit. This took 1 minute and 6 seconds, and I'd say that cream is whipped. If I'm whipping cream and I'm doing a lot, I like to use my stand mixer, but when I'm just doing like a small amount for a recipe or something, or just like a small amount to put on, I don't know, waffles, something like that, this hand mixer with these wire whisks has been just great. I'm just scraping it to make sure. Yeah, it's pretty, we got stiff peaks. I'd say that's whipped. I'm bringing back the cheese mixture from earlier. And I'm gonna add this whipped cream. Actually, let me switch to a bigger spatula. To the cheese mixture. And it says, fold into cheese mixture. So I'm gonna be very gentle because we want volume, we want fluff. It's incorporating like really nicely, actually. That's all I have to do for right now because you just serve this over fresh strawberries. I think you could also serve this over fresh peaches. Peach season is like just around the corner as I'm filming this. By the time I publish this, it might be peach season in my area. Any delicious fresh fruit, maybe like plums or other berries, I think this is probably gonna be great with any of those. So just use your favorite. I have a few minutes left on the casserole, but I have to let it stand. Like after I take it out, I have to let it just kind of sit there for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna get to work on my green beans. The final recipe of this video is going to be one of these bean fix-ups. This is just a whole list of things you can do to green beans to snazz them up a little bit. I'm going with this first one, the green beans almond. Hello, focus. There we go. Yeah, the green beans almond. Okay, so I'm melting a tablespoon of butter in this pan. Back here, I have 2 servings of French-style green beans that I have just cooked and drained. I'm keeping them warm. And this is gonna be like a topping to put on those French-style green beans. Letting that butter melt just a little bit more. Okay, sufficiently melted. I'm going to add a tablespoon of sliced almonds to this butter. These are sliced almonds. I believe the recipe says slivered almonds. I prefer sliced, so that's what I have. And I'm just supposed to cook these almonds in the butter. Okay, my almonds are smelling nice and toasty. The butter is browning. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off. Apologies if you hear any background noise. It is the season of yard work and there's nothing I can do about it. So now I'm gonna add just a little bit of lemon juice. Sizzle, sizzle. Mix that together. And I've moved my green beans over here so that you can see them because I'm gonna pour this lovely mixture onto the green beans. So let's do that now. And that's green beans almond. So I'm gonna mix this together. And now the only thing that's left to do is to fix myself a plate. Got my plate here, my green beans, my inside out ravioli, and then on the side I have my strawberry cream. The inside out ravioli is pretty interesting. You could cut this into squares, which I didn't do. I scooped it with a spoon, but the breadcrumbs, the egg, etc. in the pasta, they kind of make it form this cohesive layer. So I'm kind of like understanding it a little bit more. Like the sauce is its own separate thing, and then the pasta is its own layer. I'm gonna try that first because it's been done for a little bit. I think it's pretty important to let it sit for at least 10 minutes. Okay, that's pretty good. A little bit lasagna-esque, but no ricotta or like cottage cheese or anything. Whoops, I'm losing a bite. but very tasty. I just got a bite of that American cheese and I kind of love it. Come after me if you want. That is pretty tasty, warm and comforting, just like you would imagine. Now I'm gonna go for the green beans. I may sprinkle a little salt on these because there was like, I cooked them in salted water, but there's no other salt in them. Nice and buttery with a little surprise citrus in there. You try an almond. Toasty, tasty. I like frozen green beans. It's probably my second favorite frozen vegetable, top being frozen peas. So I always have them in my freezer. This is a great way to jazz them up a little bit, make them more interesting. I'm not gonna add any more salt. I think this is, the flavor of them is as I would like it. So now we turn to the dessert. The strawberry cream looks a little familiar to me, and I thought about it. I think this is cheese foam. So if you've had cheese foam, maybe you haven't, it's something that you can get on like cold tea at a tea shop, or like boba tea. You can add that as like a layer on the top, and it's just kind of this like sweet, cheesy experience, I guess. And that's what it looks like. And it, according to the ingredients, you know, maybe I made cheese foam and I didn't even know it. Okay, I'm gonna get one strawberry. It tastes pretty much exactly like that to me. Really good with the fresh berries though. It's just got that little savory edge to it with the cream cheese and like that tanginess from the cream cheese, but fluffy whipped cream, just ever so lightly sweetened. And it really lets the berries shine. It really complements them well. Yeah, I have some of this foam, like this cream left. I think I'm gonna make a boba tea. I have like a boba tea kit. I'm gonna put some of this foam on top. I think it's perfect. It tastes just like it to me anyway. I'm gonna sit down, enjoy my lunch, and then I'll come back to talk to you about the cookbook and share my final thoughts about this meal. The Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook was published in 1976, at least this edition was. There are a lot of different editions of this book, and I've showcased a few of them here on my channel. And this is the type of book that I like to call it catch-all. I don't know if catch-all is the right term. Comprehensive might be a little bit better. I like catch-all though. And what I mean by that is that it's a cookbook that has a little bit of everything. This one is a binder edition, which usually means tabs. So you can see it has tabs here for different sections. And each section, you know, represents a different category. It might be meats or main dishes. It might be desserts or vegetables or something like that. So a cookbook like this one is a good one to have in your collection, mostly because if you're looking for a recipe for something, you know, something like this is maybe gonna have it. My go-to is back here. I always pointed it. It's the Joy of Cooking 75th Anniversary Edition. You know, maybe you've never prepared a certain type of meat before. The example I like to give is the first time I made a leg of lamb. I didn't know what I was doing, but the Joy of Cooking did. So that's where I learned how to prepare a leg of lamb. The Better Homes and Gardens kinds of books that are like this, they're very recognizable. A lot of them have this gingham look to them. There's one particular edition that they like went away from that. I have a video where I talk a little bit about that, so I will link it in the description down below in case you missed it. But I could bet that a lot of people who are watching right now, their family had one of these books, or maybe you have one in your collection right now. I always love a binder cookbook. It feels very important. It has heft to it, you know. It's got the tabs, so it feels very organized. It's got these rings here, so it lays flat. I'm just a big fan of the binder cookbooks. This one, unlike some of the other like earlier editions, it's not going to have illustrations. It does have a lot of photographs though, and the photographs are very helpful because then you kind of know what something is supposed to look like. It's especially helpful if you're cooking something that maybe you've never tried before. My book just fell open to this gorgeous photograph of cookies, so I thought I better show this to you because, you know, the universe is telling me to let you see this. Looks like we have some thumbprint cookies. We've got cinnamon raisin bars. I believe I made those. Actually, I did make those in a previous video where I cooked a full day of meals from this cookbook. We've got peanut butter cookies, Sandy's, mocha frosted drops. Kind of makes me want to get ready for some Christmas cookies. Christmas in July, perhaps. This book has a lot of very helpful information but it is kind of like of the time. So 1976 is when this came out. The first chapter of this book is appliance cooking. So you could probably take a guess at some of the appliances in 1976 that would have been popular. So the first one is an electric skillet. You know, you can still get electric skillets today. It's a great way to cook. You know, if you are needing something that's a little bit more portable, maybe you don't have a ton of space in your kitchen, you need an extra surface to cook on. My mom had an electric skillet and cooked a lot of dinners in that thing. In addition to the electric skillet, we have the good old slow cooker. Gotta love a slow cooker. And in the 70s especially, that's when slow cookers kind of like really rose to popularity. There's microwave cooking in here. Some people did have microwaves in the 70s. I actually have one of the first microwave cookbooks that came out in the late 60s. So they did exist. They were very expensive at that time, but more and more people throughout like the mid to late 70s into the early 80s were getting microwaves. I remember my grandparents' old microwave. It was gigantic. Oh my gosh, it was huge. And it had like the push button. The one that I remember in my home growing up, like when I was really little, it had a dial that you would turn, but it was also very big. I remember microwaves being huge, like huge in stature, huge in popularity too, I guess. The second chapter is barbecues and easy meals. We've got some beautiful looking chicken. I don't know why they exactly chose to put barbecues and easy meals together. Barbecuing or grilling out or whatever, that can be very easy, but it can also get very involved depending on what you're cooking. One of my recipes came from this section, the easy meals section. I think it was the dessert recipe that I made. So the easy recipes are all in this chapter, I guess. Appetizers, breads. There's even a section on canning and preserving. A word about canning and preserving, you need to follow today's standards for canning and preserving. So make sure your county extension office probably has a lot of good information. Sometimes your local library will have classes on canning and preserving, and they can give you the latest, most up-to-date like techniques and safety rules about that. Candies. Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, this is a little creepy creeper, but like looking in that window and seeing all of that beautiful candy and those confections and everything. I don't know why they have it through someone's window. That is kind of funny. Casseroles. That's where my main dish recipe came from. I love a casserole. I really do. Sometimes I feel like they have a little bit of a bad reputation, but there are good ones out there. I promise you that. Pastry and pies. We've got a lovely slice of apple pie there. There's also something about the food styling and like the lighting and the colors of the props that they use in these photographs that makes me think like, oh yes, we are firmly planted in the mid 70s. And if you are a cookbook person, there's something that you probably already know, but I'll tell you anyway. Better Homes and Gardens, Betty Crocker, Pillsbury, they do reuse some recipes and they do reuse some photographs, some imagery. So I actually used a Better Homes and Gardens cookbook for last week's video, my salads video. And there was something I wanted to point out. On the back of that salad book, there was like an orange thing. Here is the same photo of that orange thing. It's right here. It's actually a garnish. It says that it is an orange chrysanthemum to garnish a serving platter of fresh fruit. And you combine 2 or 3 orange peels that have been sectioned and cut into small petals. That seems like a lot of effort. It is beautiful. If you're feeling ambitious and you want to make an orange chrysanthemum for your fruit platter, go right ahead. Not sure if that's something I'm going to be doing in the near future, but whatever makes you happy, right? But yeah, you're going to see if you collect a certain type of cookbook and there's like a lot of them in a series, you're probably going to see some recipes that are reused throughout the years. Sometimes they'll take like basically the same recipe and they'll update a couple of ingredients based on availability or popularity. Cheese stuffed apples? That's a cheese I think that's cream cheese, but I kind of like the idea. I thought it was just like an apple, but if you look really closely, the core is a different color and that's some kind of cheese mixture. I'd try it. Oh my gosh. So we just, at least where I live, came through strawberry season. Our strawberry season's pretty short here, but look at that. Oh my goodness. Isn't that gorgeous? So in addition to recipes, these types of books often have a lot of helpful information about cooking in general. You know, cuts of meat. Sorry, there's a little bit of a glare. There's a lot of like information on temperatures and stuff like that. Oh, this is helpful. We've got a list of like emergency substitutions back here too. That's always nice, because what if you want to make something, you're just down like one ingredient. 1 square of unsweetened chocolate equals 3 tablespoons of cocoa plus 1 tablespoon of butter or margarine. That's a good one to know, you know, in an emergency. You know, sometimes if I just am missing one thing and I'm like, oh, I thought I had that, I don't have that, do I want to leave the house? It's really kind of a battle in my mind on whether or not I actually want to like go to the store. Oh, I didn't even notice this. If you love cookbooks, you're gonna love this image. I hope the camera's picking it up. It's just a whole bunch of different Better Homes and Gardens cookbooks. I have a lot of these. Oh my gosh. They're not all cookbooks either. Some of them are like the gift, you know, gifts to make yourself. The sewing book. I have the sewing book. I have a few Better Homes and Gardens books over here. You can't see them, but I have like the handyman's book, the garden book. Oh, I just love to see that image. I think it's so cool. I don't know. I love this cookbook. I was not born in 1976, but a lot of like these images and recipes kind of transfer to when I was born in the early 80s, just because this is the type of thing that like my family would have had and made and all of that. Oh, and one last image before we move on to the recipes. This kitchen, if I were a brave, bold person, my kitchen may just look like this. I know. The choice of color on that cabinetry is something else, but I kind of love it. If I moved into a house that already had this, I'd probably leave it as is. I think I'd be into it. It is a statement for sure. But let's talk about the recipes I made today. So I decided to do a full kind of dinner menu. I haven't done one of these in a little while, but they are kind of fun to do. This one consisted of a main dish, a side dish, and a dessert. So let's start with the main dish. The first recipe I tried was for inside out ravioli. And as I went along, I kind of started to understand this recipe a little bit more. I thought, oh, that's a pasta bake, of course. Yeah, it is a pasta bake, but it's like maybe not the typical way that you would make a pasta bake. I don't know. It was interesting. It was interesting. It turned out really well. It tasted really good. You know, at first I was thinking, oh, you should mix the sauce in with the pasta. And I take that back. I don't think you should do that, because the sauce that you put together, it is very thick. And when you just layer it on top only, like only on the top, once you bake that, because you're baking it uncovered, it does kind of cook down even more, and it makes its own kind of very thick tomatoey layer, which I like. I like that sort of consistency in this particular casserole. You know, you can mix it together if you want, but then it becomes something else, I think. And then like that base layer of the pasta, the egg, the breadcrumbs, it really does kind of simulate kind of like a ricotta, I guess. Or I like to make lasagna and things like that with cottage cheese, you know, do what you want, but it kind of binds everything together and it makes its own sort of solid layer. I kind of like that about this like layered thing. Normally I'd be a mix it all together kind of person, but in this case, you know, it's not too much trouble to sort of keep those layers separate. And I think it turns into something like really different. I have made a lot of casseroles. Just the nature of what I do on this channel means that I've probably made an above average number of casseroles. And yes, this one is like a pasta bake kind of thing, but it's pretty different, I would say, than any of the other ones that I've made on this channel, and I really, really enjoyed it. Resist the temptation to put cheese on top. I'm just saying this. I'm not telling you what to do, but I kind of love that the tomato layer does, I don't know, it cooks down more. And I don't think it would cook down in the same way if you baked this with cheese on top. Maybe have cheese available, you know, after you bake it when you serve it for people to add their own thing. But I would say resist the urge. I'm almost always team like add cheese to this, but in this case, I'm like, don't put cheese on top. I think it's a really important step to have that tomato layer kind of like exposed and baked and everything. My second recipe was for strawberry cream. This was my dessert, and it did come from the barbecues and easy meals section of the book. And this was a really easy dessert and a really tasty one. And I made something that I didn't anticipate making. And I mentioned I made cheese foam. So that's what this is. I was kind of shocked to discover that this is, you know, maybe it's not exactly, but it is very, very similar. So just to kind of give you a refresher, cheese tea is a thing, and it's like tea. Some people have it on hot tea. I've done it with like iced or boba tea. And then cheese foam is something that you can add on top. I first had this in like 2021 when we were in California, and we had like a Happy Lemon, I think it was called, near us. So that was a tea shop where you can get fancy tea that you can have like add-ons and all grass jelly and boba pearls and just like all kinds of different things, fruit. And then you can get a layer of cheese foam on the top. It's not a sensation or flavor that maybe everyone's gonna enjoy, but I really like it. From my understanding, you drink the tea through the foam kind of, so you get a mixture of those flavors. I know, some of you are like, this does not sound palatable, but I love it. It's better than you think it's going to be and downright enjoyable in my book. So I kind of looked up a little bit of information on this whole thing, and according to Wikipedia, this came about in 2010. I believe it said in Taiwan. It kind of became more popular here in the States in like the early 2020s, which kind of tracks because I had it in 2021. In certain parts of the country, it was probably even more popular before that, but you know, where I am, it wasn't a thing until I moved to California and had it there. It sounds like this might be an ever so slightly sweeter version of the foam. So I would say if you don't want that little bit of sweetness, you can omit that if you're actually going to use this for tea. But now I feel like I gotta talk about it as a dessert, because even though like it is a dessert, it's a very versatile thing. You know, you can eat it on top of like different types of fruit. It's very refreshing. It just gives, it's sweet, but it's got that tangy, savory edge. So it's not like so sweet and in your face, you know, and it really depends on the type of fruit that you want to put it with. It is pretty light and foamy and frothy. So I wouldn't say like, oh, this is definitely what you would want to use as like a fruit dip. I think it does go better just like on top of fruit. On the strawberries, it was perfect. It was really delicious, really refreshing, and kind of light, you know? In the summer when it's warm, you might want a little bit of a lighter dessert. But yeah, it's cheese foam, folks. If you want to make your own cheese tea at home, like you can follow this recipe and it would be pretty darn close. My final recipe was for green beans almond. This just came from a list of ways that you could fancy up your green beans, which is very helpful because I like to keep frozen vegetables on hand just to have something. Sometimes, you know, if you get fresh produce, it can go bad unless you have a plan for it. But frozen vegetables, they have, you know, they have nutrients, they have the nutrition of just fresh vegetables, but they have a bit of a longer life for you. So maybe you need a quick vegetable side, throw in some frozen peas, some frozen green beans, whatever you got. But this is a way to make them taste a little bit better or change the way that they taste a little bit so that you don't get bored with them. It wasn't huge, it wasn't complicated. It was just a little bit of lemon, some butter, and some almonds. And it made them very nice. It's always nice to have something like that easily available because it encourages you to like eat your vegetables, to get those nutrients, to get that fiber. We all need a little bit of extra fiber in our diet, right? So that was just a list for green beans. There are a number of ways that you can jazz up your other frozen vegetables as well. You know, you could probably even take some of those ideas and apply them to something like frozen peas or frozen carrots or something. So that was my little 1970s dinner menu. Have you had any of these recipes before? I'd love to hear about it, so please leave me a comment. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll have a link in the description so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.